the idea around the It's Never Too Soon for Christmas really came about from actually seeing a Brett Eldredge concert. I got really into Brett Eldredge before the pandemic, and he was coming to town, to Boston, which is my hometown. And I said to my wife, you want to go see Brett Eldredge? She's like, yeah, that'd be great. So I bought tickets, and I looked on the ticket and it said Christmas show. And I was like, I remember being a little bit bummed at first. I'm like, what's this all about? And then I looked it up on Spotify, and I saw that he had a Christmas album out. So I listened to the Christmas album. I fell in love with it. The album was Glow, and just loved it. It was around the holidays, so we went to see the show, and he did a big holiday show with the big band, and I just loved it. And the next morning, I was having coffee with my wife, and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do a Christmas song. And she was like, where are you going with this? So anyway, that was kind of the start of it. I'd always wanted to do one, but never kind of found the inspiration just in the beginning. So really started with seeing that show. And then it kind of, the concept for It's Never Too Soon for Christmas sort of started out. I kind of had it in the back of my mind. I was like, I got to find a title. And you know how so many of the stores, they just keep starting earlier and earlier with all the Christmas stuff. And I remember that was kind of happening, and I think I was in a Michael's or something, and I saw the Christmas stuff out, and I was commenting to one of the people working in the store, and she said it's never too soon for Christmas. And I was like, wow. I'm like, that's it. So I kind of came up with that concept, and that kind of sparked it. And then I had that idea. And then in terms of the writing, I approached my good friend and co-writer on a lot of my songs, Steve Seskin. It was during the pandemic, so we were writing over Zoom. And I said, Steve, I want to write a Christmas song with you. And I just remember him looking back at me over the Zoom, and he was like, Rich, I'm Jewish. But it was actually a really funny moment because we both realized in that moment, actually a lot of the really great Christmas songs were written by Jewish songwriters in the 50s and 40s. You had Sammy Cahn, who wrote Let It Snow, Let It Snow. Irving Berlin famously wrote White Christmas. So I roped him in, and he was up for it. So we began writing. But writing a Christmas song, or writing It's Never Too Soon for Christmas, is, it's more difficult than it looks. We went through a lot of iterations, and the first step was trying to find a word that rhymes with Christmas, because we were trying to write the setup line to It's Never Too Soon for Christmas, and we came up with a pretty good idea in terms of It's Never Too Late, and then we were looking up words, and we came up with forgiveness. And I was like, wow, I thought that was like the best word. I was like, never too late for forgiveness, never too soon for Christmas. And I remember Steve saying, it's great, but is Christmas really about forgiveness? And I was like, well, and I started saying, yeah, how, people, over the holidays, they get kind of sentimental. And we came up with this whole storyline around a brother being estranged from the singer. And we wrote this sort of a country song, it's never too late for forgiveness, it's never too soon for Christmas. And we had this whole plot line, like, he was estranged from his brother, and then they meet up on Christmas Eve, and it's this great thing. So I was like all into it. And again, I just love the word forgiveness. So then I did what I usually do. I made a demo, a work tape on my iPhone with just me and the acoustic guitar, and I played it for my wife and my daughter Molly and my son Michael. And I was like, I want to play you my Christmas song. So I hit the button, played it for them. And then at the end, they were like, that's the saddest Christmas song we've ever heard. I was like, oh, and they were like, you got to rewrite that. Like they didn't really like it. And so I went back to Steve with my tail between my legs. I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking the forgiveness thing isn't working. He's like, you said that's what you wanted. I was like, I know. Steve's a much better writer than me, so I should have gone in his direction. But I love the forgiveness. So anyway, I had the new idea of giving. And so we came up with It's Never Too Late to start giving. It's never too soon for Christmas. And then it was like, yeah, that's what we have to do. So we had to rewrite it again. We kind of went through multiple iterations and trying to get the whole brother and the forgiveness out of it. And it was interesting because even as much as like 3 to 4 weeks before recording the song, in fact, we're in the studio where we recorded it just today, I sent it down to a trusted source in Nashville. And I was like, what do you think? What do you think of my Christmas song? And he was like, man, it's just not jolly enough. It's just not, holly and jolly enough. And I was like, what letter grade would you give? And he was like, I don't know, C+. I was like mortified. I'm like, wait, I'm going to do this big production. And he's like, yeah, you got to make it more Christmassy. And he's like, and you don't have kids in there at all. And man, I remember when he said that, I was like, wow, how did I miss that? We didn't even have kids in there. And, you know, kids, I know my kids, I'm sure your kids, if you have them, you know, it can never come soon enough, you know, being Christmas time. They're always waiting for it and counting down the days. And so I went back to Steve. I'm like, we gotta look at this again. And I realized, like, a lot of what my friend was saying in Nashville, there were still remnants of the forgiveness and the brother, and it was just subtle. So anyway, we rewrote it again and kind of put the kid angle in there, and which I really liked. But yeah, we were rewriting it, you know, even just a few weeks before the recording. I don't know if I got it right. You know, it's like coming into to doing this again. You know, writing Christmas songs, it's difficult. It's not something you do every day, and you know, you try to harken back to some of the classics. We tried to add some of that in there, but you know, we'll see if we got it right. And in terms of producing, it's never too soon for Christmas. Really fortunate to have a couple of really legendary producers. Jay Newland is producing the track. He produced all the Brett Eldredge stuff. He also famously did all the Norah Jones, really the big albums there, so that was special. I think Pat Metheny as well. And then Rob Mounsey sitting at Rob's piano here, just a force, you know, doing work with Billy Joel or Paul Simon, and he was just great writing all the horn parts and all the arrangements. So that was just special. And ironically, Rob was playing piano that night when I originally saw the Brett Eldredge show. So it kind of came full circle. And in fact, a lot of the people recording with us today were at that show as well playing. So it was kind of a synchronistic kind of capper to it all. So really lucky to have Rob and Jay involved. They really worked with me Rob kept saying, you know, you got to sing like Frank Sinatra. You got to pretend like you got a scotch and a cigar and just be, you know, laid back. And I'm like, I'm the least laid back singer that there is. So he was just trying to get me to lay into it. And, you know, it's a different genre for me, coming from the country genre and trying to do more of like a jazz Christmas song. But they were great and just such great guys. And I felt blessed to kind of make the track with them. And then lastly, you know, the band, we recorded at the Domina Center for Performing Arts in New York City. Just felt like it had to be a New York City kind of recording. And 17-piece band, all the horns. It was just singing with them. It was just hearing the sound reverberate in this big room. You kind of can't see it, but we're in a room that feels like half of a football stadium. And it's just hearing the sounds and the drums and the rhythm section and the horns. It's just a moment that I'll remember. So, you know, in closing, I hope you like the song. I hope it brings you joy around the holidays. That's what I wrote it for. And I hope it brings you some good times. And so Merry Christmas, and thanks for listening. Oh, I definitely love Christmas. It's funny because when we first wrote the song, we had a lot of kind of bylines, the second or third iteration, where the singer was the one getting the tree and stringing up the lights early, but we wanted to take the focus off the singer. But yeah, I'm not afraid to get the tree early. My kids love going, and I like decorating the house, and I'm not someone that needs to sort of wait. So yeah, I really enjoy the holidays, and it's just something I've always wanted to do. So this was really a bucket list for me. It's probably going to be a pretty unprofitable track, I would imagine, because with all the players, there was probably 35 people in the room today working on this song. Maybe 17 players. You had the producers, a lot of engineers, people running around, maybe 35 people. So a lot of people worked on it, and just grateful for that. But yes, I do love Christmas, and just something I always wanted to do. So it was a bucket list for me.